thank you so much. I think we can get started because
I love this.
you're actually away. Like, this is our first on tour. You're my fourth interviewee now for this Chats with Everybody, which has been born from the Nobu Pilates campaign, Everybody is a Pilates Body. And it's had some really nice discussions around it, not just with the people that I've had lives with, but just beyond that, even in our comments and our DMs. And I think it is really important to keep this chat going. And there are so many people, incredible people like yourself in the Pilates industry in London, that I really want to highlight. So thank you for your time.
Really
so let's talk about you. How did it start?
So for me, it came through a body rehab. So when I was 15, I had a slip disc, and it was one of those things that Pilates was a thing that I did in order to kind of make sure that my back was, you know, the best it could be, but it was from a contemporary background. So I was very lucky. One of the founders of Body Control was a family friend, and my dad had been doing Pilates with him for years. My mum had been doing Pilates with him for years as well.
Wow.
And he was like, right, your back's bad, you need to go and do Pilates. So I started doing Pilates, you know, on a church floor with loads of older ladies, and I was like the youngest by about 60 years, and I kind of just thought Pilates was something that like older people did, and I never really fully understood the whole practice of itself until like much later down the line when I did my training a bit more. And I did the training more to understand about my body, because for me it was, and it was then and it still is now, and which feeds into your wonderful campaign, is, you know, what it means to me. It means so much more than just a practice. It's a way of managing my own body. So like, we had a really long flight where I had my baby sleeping on me for 12 hours. And I was like, oh my God, I need to get to the other end and do a workout, because that, it kind of realigns my body. It makes me feel like I've been put back together. It's like sort of being unwound and squashed into little spaces, and then being put back is just your practice that you can take with you wherever you go. And you can manage it whenever your body's not feeling great, or your mind's not feeling great, or you need some relief in whatever that looks like to you. And that's why I just think it's such an amazing practice that anyone can do.
Why did you choose your route?
You know what, I think that's a really important and interesting question, because I think generally speaking, when I chose it, 90% of Pilates was contemporary at the time. I think that contemporary was more well known, because classical, and this, people are probably going to hate this, but classical at the time, when, you know, I did it, what, 20 years ago I started Pilates. So that it was, classical was more very niche, and you only knew of classical if you were in that kind of circle. So contemporary was more about clients, and able to kind of break down the exercises. It made it attainable for kind of anyone. And I think it was a practice that people just did for rehab. And I think that's where contemporary came in. And that's obviously why I think I found it. And I think that's why more people see it through contemporary, because it generally comes from the rehab side. Because most people go to the physio, go to the osteo, go to the chiropractor. You should do Pilates for your back, your knee, your hips, whatever. So I think that's where it sort of started really coming into its own, because people saw it as a way to rehab themselves.
You've got your classical and your contemporary ones, and you found Natalie. Which do you lean, or you bang in the middle?
I lean 100% to the classical. I think for me personally, the classical came at an opportunity where I was a little bit stuck with my training and a little bit limited, because the contemporary, you can learn in sections. You can just do mat, you can just do reformer, you can just do Cadillac, Wonder Chair, whatever. And I loved how the classical, you learn it as a whole. And yes, that is so much more work and time and effort, but it explains so many things on a different level. You see it in like 3D and color rather than black and white, because they're, as I'm sure you know, the exercises feed in from different apparatus. So if you don't have the sort of tools to pull from different apparatus, you can get quite stuck in your teaching. And which is where it just opened up a whole new door and a whole new set of like opportunities in my mind of a teaching opportunity. So that's, I definitely lean into classical, and I understand the method, the sequence of the exercises, and it just helps with your own practice and your teaching.
What's your experience been with this evolution and this term of the Pilates body?
So it's really difficult, isn't it? Because it goes back to that kind of encouraging movement. And I think that there's a big section where like younger teenagers are missed, people who are not sporty are missed, you know, as you're growing up. You know, it was something that I did from the age of 15. So for me, it was such a fundamental way of supporting my sporting excellence. But it also, personally, for me, the Pilates body has been, you know, tsunami, car crash, like pregnancy, all these different hurdles in my life where my body has been pretty much broken. I have now put my body back together. And I think that's what we need to remember it as, rather than, like you said, this Pilates body where beautifully aesthetic people are doing Pilates, but it kind of is almost it's like the videos that you see where people are falling off, and it's not about getting the guys to shake so much that they tremble and kind of humiliate them. It's to just remind them to be humble, that there is a practice and that it is hard work. And it's not something that you know, we've got hundreds of bodies in our studio, as I'm sure you do as well. We've got older people, larger people, but they're all as, you know, strong as each other in their own way. So I love that you're redefining the term Pilates body, because and with your campaign, because it was showing the different bodies, like all of these people can do Pilates, and it's not about comparing yourself to someone else in your class. It's about working within your limits. And I think that that's what often is really difficult, because you have people going, oh, I do Pilates, and every studio is different with their levels, but not just assuming just because you've done Pilates for 15 years that you can book yourself into an intermediate class. Like I would book myself into a beginner class wherever it was, just to make sure that I feel safe, or I feel like I'm meeting the level that I should be, rather than just assuming I've done it for 15 years, I know everything. So I think that the aesthetics has made Pilates elevate, because obviously who doesn't want a banging body, right? But I think that it's, you're right, it's not just about that, it's so much more than that. And it's drawing attention away from the fundamentals and the focus of the practice, and making it a bit of a kind of, oh, do Pilates and have this body. We've always known that if you do Pilates, it creates long, lean lines with a strength and a stretch. So let's not forget that, and let's remind ourselves that with this Pilates body campaign, because it is, all the fundamentals and the principles in Pilates will be with everybody if you do it right from the foundations. And that's what I think we need to remember, that we're getting a little bit distracted from.
Definitely. How do you balance your training regime whilst you're running a business and your personal life? Like, how are you fitting that all in?
It has taken me a long time to get back. Various complications with pregnancy, birth, all of that stuff, and setting up a studio. So I'm not here to tell you that it's easy or that you can have it all, because my body and my health has suffered as a result of those other things. You just have to be okay with taking things in stages. And I haven't been necessarily okay with taking things in stages, but it's just been the way that it has had to be. So I have tried to go for a walk the dog, whenever I've got 10 minutes in between a client, just jump on the, you know, I'm so lucky, and I know that, to have the apparatus at my disposal. But you know, you can also do it on the mat. You know, that is the beauty of the mat. So loads of clients that go away on holiday or go traveling, you know, they have to go away with work so much, they don't have consistent opportunities to come into the studio. So rolling out your mat and having, you know, a sequence of exercises that you go in and practice with a teacher, so that you know every day you've got 10 minutes to give yourself. So look at the time that you have, be realistic about it. Me telling myself I've got an hour is unlikely. So I go, right, okay, I'm going to give myself, I have to give myself 10 minutes minimum a day.
Who do you admire in the Pilates industry?
So that's
so many.
a good one. Yeah, apart from you. So I would say that, like, my OG like team, our team that we met up with the other day, like seeing how far everyone's gone and what everyone's done has been so amazing, because I think sharing the message and really owning Pilates and pushing and challenging what it is and where it's going, it's been really amazing. Obviously, you know, Holly, where we learned, is the most like, I've got such a soft spot for her. She's an incredible teacher. And despite growing with her and me now having my own studio, we're still really close, and we still, you know, touch base, and we're connected, because I think that, you know, she's my foundation. She's where I have been. And along the way, she's brought in different teachers that have shown me such incredible things. If you don't follow Katie Yip in America, she is
She came and taught at your studio, didn't she?
Yeah, she came in and taught in the studio last year, and she's just about to have a baby. And bloody hell, that woman, she's still going. I think she's about to pop, and she's still
like
on that Wonder
really
Chat.
nice sessions in the gym.
She is still on that
and
Wonder
her
Chat.
team are really great. Shout out to those instructors.
Yeah, exactly. And I just think any instructors who really elevate other instructors, like in my studio, I'm really, really conscious of being aware that, you know, Holly was great, and Holly is great, and she's always been there for me. And I think I was really lucky to have been fed different incredible teachers on my journey. And I want to, and I think it's diluted a little bit. So, and I think there's so like much out there with the Pilates body, you get distracted from where the lineage goes, and where the foundations come from, and where your journey should be looking back to. And it's important to seek out those elders, because there aren't that many of them left, and looking at their training and their learnings and giving that to them. So I think about sharing. Knowledge is power, right? And I any teacher who is willing to share their knowledge, I'm here for them, because all these teachers who are so guarded with their information or their images or their bits, like, what's that going to do? Like, that's just going to disappear.
I hate gatekeeping. What? How does that help us?
It's not helping anyone.
Yeah.
So I'm always, and I think also there's this worry, a lot of teachers that have come through as well, and we had this a little bit in the studio, is not being afraid. Like, I get it, I totally understand you feel so vulnerable, but not being afraid to say, hey, I don't understand that, because no one's going to understand it. I sometimes still don't understand stuff, and I see it from a different way, or I go, oh yeah, the rowing, like, that's amazing, like, I didn't think of it like that, or I didn't think of it in that way, or oh, that connection I'm only just starting to feel or understand or learn. So I think it's so important to just say, hey, no one knows the answers, no one knows the right way, and to just keep sharing and keep volunteering information, and keep just learning, and just going and listening, and opening your eyes up to just exploring different ways. Because I think when you shut down and you're not willing to observe, to practice, there's three components. There's observation, practice, and obviously your teaching. And you can't just have one of those. You have to have all three and continue to do that.
100%.
The advice for newly qualified instructors: also train classically, but finding local studios are much more contemporary led. And I think that yes, definitely, that is really hard, and it really generally depends on where you're based, because generally speaking, you know, you're more likely to find classical in London. I'm sorry, it's true, there's more opportunities. But follow, you know, the classical teachers, like, and just approach them, like studios. Lifebody is always looking for teachers. I'm actually recruiting for a company. Thank you, Marsha, for all your lovely help with that. Next year, and I need classical instructors. So if you're classically trained and you're interested in working, come at me, because I need you. And the classically trained instructors. You can still teach actually in contemporary studios, and just kind of weasel your classical knowledge through. You know, that's when I remember when I was doing my training, I had all my contemporary work in the studios that I was working, and I actually was practicing my classical in the contemporary studios, and they were like, what is this? This is like great. And I had loads and loads of clients being like, I like this way of teaching, just because, you know, maybe it fitted me naturally, so therefore it came out of me more. So, you know, I'm not saying that it's, you know, one or the other, and that the other one is wrong, but I really felt that I had found my natural groove, and so therefore it flowed more with me. So yeah, you can absolutely still do it in your contemporary studios, but yeah, it's also, there are loads of classical studios, and if you've done your training in a classical studio, speak to them. They're going to help you find.
What advice do you have for those who, you know, are kind of seeing all that Pilates body imagery and not seeing themselves represented within that, so they're feeling kind of a bit trepidatious about even stepping into a studio? What do you tell them?
Pick somewhere where that you feel comfortable. So if you go in and they're like too busy to chat to you, or you know, that's not, again, the nicest feeling. But if someone is like, hey, you know, they're there, we're here to help you guys, we're here to like teach you, you know, we love the teaching, so come on in. So try and book yourself, if you can, into a quieter foundation class. Pick a time that isn't as busy during the day, so that you don't feel so intimidated, and you might even get, you know, a little smaller class, and you might have that opportunity to train with the teacher. Come a little bit early, just say, hey, I'm really nervous. Don't be afraid to say that. And you know, don't see it like your body isn't represented, because it will be in some way, shape or form, but you just don't necessarily see it.
Where can everyone find you, Nathalie?
So find me on my page, or also Life Body page, which is linked under my bio. So I've got a studio in Barnes.
Thank you so much.
Amazing.
This was such a
Love
fun
chatting.
chat.
It was. I could have gone on forever.
Thank you, everybody that joined. Any questions, DM Nobu, DM Nathalie, or whatever, and we'll get back to you. So much love. Have a great Sunday.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.